Hey guys, it's Blake from WRTHY, excited to be back with another Serum tutorial video. For today's video, I'm going to be walking through an FM Pluck sound. This sound could be used kind of more in a chord fashion or more standalone as a lead. And so I've got a phrase here that has kind of both of those options intertwined. So I'll go ahead and give that a play so you can get a feel for the sound, and then we'll walk through how to build this sound up from scratch and then how to modify the sound for each of those different scenarios. All right, so here it is. All right, so let's just go ahead and dive right in and start building this sound up from scratch, and then we'll talk about kind of how to use it in these two different scenarios. So to start with, let's pop open oscillator A and then grab the analog, DS, saw, and tri-wave. And we can go ahead and keep wavetable position at 0 here, and then let's bump unison voices up to 3. And then we can pull our detune down to about 0.02, just like that. All right, and that's pretty well it for oscillator A. For oscillator B, let's turn that on and then go to analog basic shapes. And we are going to leave it at the sine wave and wavetable position 0. We also want 3 unison voices for oscillator B, and then let's bring the detune down to 0.01. And so both of these sounds are going to be sitting relatively close to each other in terms of stereo space with their unison voices, but not quite on top of each other. And this is to not have either sound mask the other one, but to kind of add some richness in that stereo space, pretty narrowed in. And so another thing we want to do for this sound is go ahead and take the fine pitch here and drop it down a little bit. I'm doing about 13 cents. You could do anywhere up to 25 or more, just to taste. Let's play with it a little bit and see where you like it. But I'll go ahead and give this a play. It's going to be a little bit harsh, a little bit crunchy for the time being, but not too bad. All right, and so to kind of really give this sound its character, let's go ahead and set the warp here to FM from A, and then crank this all the way to 100%. So this is going to add even more harmonics, even more harshness. Go ahead and give that a play. All right, so it doesn't sound very plucky right now, so let's go ahead and turn on the filter, and then grab our envelope 1 and pull this down to 0 here. We want the decay to be right around 950 milliseconds or so, anywhere in that range, and then let's set our release to about 4 milliseconds, anywhere in the lower range there, and then let's bring this curve down just a little bit as well. All right, and then to give it its kind of Pluck characteristic, let's apply this envelope to the cutoff, and then do Shift-Alt-Click, and then let's bring our cutoff down to about 35 hertz, and then maybe a range of about 60 or so, and this should give us the range of 35 to about 4,000 hertz in that Pluck. I'll go ahead and give this a play. All right, so now that it's kind of got its Pluck characteristic, let's go ahead and give it a little more tonality to the sound, a little more character in the effects section. And so we're going to pop open the hyperdimension, drag the unison down to 0, and turn on the retrigger. And let's go ahead and push our mix all the way up to 100% for now. And then we can leave the rate and detune as is. Dimension mix should be at 0. Go ahead and give that a play. All right, now let's add in some distortion. We'll use the tube distortion, no pre or post filtering, and then let's push the drive up to about 91% here, or anywhere around 90% is good. We'll keep the mix at 100%, and then let's pop open the delay. First, let me play this actually with just the distortion. All right, now we'll pop on the delay. We'll keep the feedback at 40%. And let's bring the left to an 1/8 delay and the right to a 1/16 delay. So what this is going to do is have the right channel have twice as fast of a delay time as the left channel. So this will give us kind of an interesting stereo effect I'll show you here shortly. We do also want to take this filtering and do a high pass filter somewhere around 3500 hertz, just like that. And then let's set the delay type to ping pong as well, and drive our mix up to 50%. Go ahead and give this a play. So you can see with the way that we've set up this delay, it does kind of a circular effect. It kind of gives you this like nice wide bouncing effect. It makes it a little more interesting than just your basic sound. But it does kind of take up a lot of the stereo image. We do want to remove a little bit of that harshness. So we're going to toss the compressor on here. Let's go ahead and turn on the multiband and then bring the threshold down to -11. The ratio to about 1.2. And then the attack to about 30 milliseconds. And then the release, you can kind of play with how tight or loose you kind of want the sound to be. So if we push the release up a little bit higher, it'll be a little bit more of a precise sound. And if we bring it down, it'll be a little bit looser. So we're going to keep it around 70 for now, and then probably adjust this a little bit later as we switch to our lead sound. All right, and for the last piece here, let's go ahead and turn on the reverb. We'll keep it for a hall reverb. The size can be anywhere in the 25 to 35% range. Decay, let's bring it down to 1 second for now. Let's push the low cut up to about 25%, and then we can leave the high cut, spin, and spin depth as is. The mix, let's push to 30%, and then we'll go ahead and give that a play. All right, and so the last thing we want to do here, let's go ahead and turn on our porta here. This will just kind of allow the notes to slide together as we change notes. Which is kind of fun. You can play with this as to how long you want that porta time to be, how much slide you want there to be between notes. If you want there to be no slide at all the way at 0. If you want there to be a lot more slide, just keep pushing this upwards. But the other thing that we're going to connect here, this is the main base of the sound. So at this point we could do any of our chords pretty easily. But in order to make this a little more modular, we are going to add some macros in here. The first macro we're going to put on the mix of the hyper. This one you could argue is a bit of a redundant macro because we are going to do the full range. So basically if it's 0, we won't have any hyper. If it's at 100, it'll be max hyper. So you don't necessarily have to use that one, as you can always just automate the mix knob here. For the second one, we're going to put this onto the release of the compressor. And so let's give it a range of about 30 or so. And that gives us a range from about 70 to about 350 or so milliseconds of release. And so that's going to enable us to kind of control whether we want that a little bit tighter of a sound, a little bit more precise, which maybe is more useful in a lead situation, versus the little bit looser, which maybe we want to use more in a chord situation. And the reason we use the macro instead of just automating like the release knob is this gives us like an easy set point that we can do without changing the base of the sound. And you can clone the sound and make edits between a couple different versions pretty easily. Another reason is as you apply this full range of the macro to the smaller range of the other knob, it makes it easier whenever you're automating to kind of just hit those extremes of like 0 and 100 a lot quicker than having to try to automate between these weird values. So for the last macro here, let's go ahead and toss this onto the decay of the reverb. We can let it go somewhere around 40 or so. We want this to be, go up to around 5 seconds. So 40 looks good, maybe a little bit less than 40. Go ahead and play with this guy. So as you can see, kind kind of gives it slight variations, allows it to sit a little bit differently in the mix. This last macro here enables it to be a little bit more airy, kind of like recede back in the mix a little bit more, just have a little bit more decay on that reverb, or sit a little bit more prominent and up front. So going back to this phrase here, I'll play everything in context. So for this chord sound, I went ahead and used pretty well the bass patch that I showed you before. The main difference, or sorry, not that one. Basically the same bass patch that I showed you before. But we basically are using just a little bit on the mix here for just a little bit on the mix for the release, so it's a little bit more on the looser side. We're pushing the space out just a little bit on this decay, but not all the way out, and then the hyper we're doing 100% of, and so kind of that little bit looser, little bit more receded sound makes this work a little bit better as a chord sound. And then for the lead here, for this lead, what we did was we made it a little bit sharper, a little bit more release on the compressor here, and then we lowered the space a little bit so we didn't make it recede back as far, didn't make it as airy, made it a little more up front, and then we also removed a little bit, or pretty well all of the hyper on this guy, to just kind of give it a little bit more of a cleaner sound. But you could definitely add the hyper in and still keep kind of the mixing of increasing the sharpness, reducing the space to kind of make it a little more prominent. But yeah, that's pretty well it for this sound. I'll play everything in context one more time to give you one last listen. This sound will also be in the description, so feel free to download it, use it as is, without needing to build it out yourself. But I hope that you're able to take something away from this video and enjoy using this sound. If there's anything that you think I could do better, leave me a comment. Go ahead and play this. All right, that's pretty well it. Thank you guys for listening. Peace.